Okay.
Thank you so much for joining us for NAMI Maryland's 40th Annual Conference. My name is Sharita Cole Brown, and I am a volunteer with NAMI Maryland. I will be your moderator for this session today. This workshop session is NAMI in our own voice, sharing our stories, presented by Sandy Paluzzi, a NAMI program leader, and Sarah Crimmins from NAMI Harford County. You can read more about our amazing presenters, including their full bios in the digital conference program on the official conference website. Individuals living with mental illness will lead an interactive presentation about living with mental illness. Hear their personal stories of struggles, acceptance, treatment, coping strategies, successes, hopes, and dreams. If this is not the workshop you meant to attend, please click the back button on your browser or click on the sessions button on the left-hand side of your screen to return to the full list of workshops we have available at this time. We will be addressing questions at the end of this presentation. If you have any questions as the presentation continues, please post them in the Q&A on the right-hand side of your screen. We'll be reviewing questions as they come in, and if something in particular is unclear or needs to be expanded, we'll ask our presenter after their presentation is concluded. We're pleased to offer closed captioning for this year's conference. Captioning is only available for attendees using a desktop. To enable captioning, please click on the CC icon below the display of our presenters at the bottom of your screen. Once you click the icon, the video displays will become smaller and you will see the captions being generated underneath. If you have any questions, comments, or technical issues, please post them in the chat and our technical assistant will address them accordingly. I'd like to now welcome our presenters for today's workshop, Sandy Paluzzi and Sarah Crimmins. Thank you so much for joining us today.
You're welcome, Sharita. And thank you for the wonderful introduction. My name is Sandy Paluzzi, and my diagnosis is major depression with psychotic features, which means that at times I am not in touch with reality and live in a world full of paranoid delusions. Thanks to modern medicine and a lot of hard work on my part, I have been symptom-free and living a great life since 1999. I'm 73. I live with my mother, who's 93, and my dog, who's 17. We co-own a condo together, and we love it. And I refer to us as the Golden Girls, which is a TV show that many of you are too young to have heard of. Mom's still really sharp mentally, and we like to play cards, and I love to walk my dog and go for long walks. I like to go to plays. I'm going to Rehoboth in a couple weeks, and I'm really looking forward to that. And I also like to read and write. I'm here with NAMI. NAMI stands for the National Alliance on Mental Illness. It's the country's largest grassroots organization dedicated to the betterment of life for those of us with mental health conditions and our loved ones. Here in the state of Maryland, we have 4 programs for those of us with mental illnesses. We have this one where a few volunteers talk about their successful living with mental illness. We have a peer-to-peer support group, which is an educational program which teaches you about your triggers and helps you change your reactions and develop better relationships. We have a support group which is very beneficial, and we have Ending the Silence, which is a program specifically for students, for school-age students. Now I'm going to turn things over. Oh, the good thing about the programs is they are all free, and everyone in the programs has a mental health diagnosis. So if you also have one, you won't feel all alone. And I felt a sense of family, a connection with everyone when I first met them. Now I'm going to turn it over to Sarah, who's going to tell you a little bit about herself and what we're doing today.
Thank you, Sandy. Our purpose today is, my name is Sarah. I really enjoy crime shows are one of my favorite things, and driving in the car with my windows down and the music up. I really enjoy doing that. I each day I like to check my social media to see what's happening with friends and family. I love sushi, hanging out with my friends, and crime shows, including NCIS and Blue Bloods. However, I like to keep my life drama-free and just chat with the police, not interact. Today, our purpose today is to offer insights that provide support in roles that matter to us all. To be better siblings, coworkers, neighbors, service providers, parents, spouses, and friends. Mental health conditions in ourselves or someone we care about can impact these roles. The stories you'll hear today will describe how mental health affects people and their relationship with others. We'll describe how mental health has impacted our lives, explore warning signs, and describe what kind of habits and changes support our mental health. We're going to alternate between watching a video and speaking with you directly. The video is divided into 3 segments: what happened, what helps, and what's next. After each segment, we'll pause the video briefly to share our personal story. Please hold your questions until the end of the presentation. We are here for you, and we want to speak about what you are most interested in. After hearing, so without further ado, we will begin the first part of the video.
Hi, I'm Henry.
Hi, Andrea.
Nice to meet you.
Hi, I'm Amanda.
Alika, how are you?
I'm good.
Nice to meet you, Doug.
It's a pleasure.
Hi, I'm Alex.
Hey, Alex, I'm Doug. Nice to meet you.
Just a little bit about myself. I'm a graphic designer and I work for a nonprofit. I have a little baby boy who's almost a year old.
I have 2 children and they're not babies. I have a 15-year-old daughter and a 17-year-old son.
I actually went to medical school when I was 15 in India and started practicing in the United States. I got married and had the 3 most beautiful children that one can ever imagine having.
I raised my family, and then around age 40, my friends convinced me to go to college. So I did, and became a social worker.
I have a brother and a sister that I'm very close with, and my mother and father are still together. They've been together for 30 plus years, and we're a very close family.
I enjoy the beach and spending time with my 9-month-old puppy, Snoopy, who I love with all my heart.
I consider myself a community activist. I work with people with addiction issues, people that are homeless.
What I really like to do is draw comic books. I've been doing it since I was in middle school. My diagnosis is schizoaffective disorder, bipolar type.
Borderline personality disorder.
PTSD.
Bipolar disorder.
My diagnosis is major depressive disorder. I think I tell my story so I don't forget where I've been.
I want to be able to dispel those myths that's out there about mental health conditions.
Yeah. I'm an actual person and I have a voice and I have a story to share. I started having symptoms of depression and who am I existential questions since I was 15. I used to say to myself, I'm having my midlife crisis at 15 years old.
I was suffering from this unbeknownst to me for most of my life.
I was in my early 30s. I have a 6-year-old and a 2-year-old. My husband left for work, and I closed my bedroom door, and my sons were on the other side of that door, and I was done.
With depression, I would not go to work. I would call out of work for days on end.
I didn't eat. I slept all the time.
There was about a 3-year period in my life where everything I did and said was sort of a product of the world of delusions that I was living in.
For quite some time, I didn't even recognize my symptoms because hypomania can look organized to me. So I can get a lot done in a very little bit of time. And it didn't become a problem until they noticed that I wasn't sleeping for like days on end.
I hallucinated every single day. I had hallucinations with all 5 senses. And then the anxiety sort of builds and builds and builds until it becomes kind of like a paranoia where, everything is sort of out to get you.
I couldn't express any normal emotions. I couldn't cry. I couldn't do so many things that people did, and it would bother me.
My way of dealing with it primarily was with drugs. And I know now that that's suicide on the installment plan.
I started using alcohol more. I started self-harming more. My friends, when I was a junior, saw the scars and it was horrible. They judged me. They said that I was doing it for attention and they didn't want to hang out with me.
I started self-medicating for a while, and not drugs or alcohol, but with gambling.
After I lost my job, I became homeless. I committed minor crimes to feed my drug habit, lived on the streets, and finally, eventually was arrested and sent to state prison.
As a result of my illness, it led to some criminal activities. I've served 5.5 years' time in prison. And when that happened is when all these things got unraveled.
Some people said bipolar disorder, some people said ADHD, some people said PTSD, and none of them seemed to make sense for me.
It was a diagnosis that evolved over time, several different hospitalizations, several different diagnoses until one eventually stuck.
When I was told with the depression, I didn't hear that word. What I heard was crazy. So since I knew I was not crazy, I couldn't accept that diagnosis.
We've all heard jokes about people with mental illness, people with mental health conditions. And the last thing I wanted to be was the punchline to someone's joke.
I was a special education teacher, so there were kids in my class that had ADHD or had bipolar disorder, and just listening to those teachers and how they talked about those kids, it didn't make me want to come out and share what I had just learned about myself.
I felt that I wouldn't be accepted and that all my work would be dismissed as, not credible because I had a mental illness.
For me, it's a cultural thing. So if you're dealing with mental health issues, you go to church. So I remember doing a lot of that.
I'm Hispanic, I'm Puerto Rican and Dominican, and our culture is mental health is taboo. You don't talk about it. So I struggled with really accepting that I had an issue.
I felt no one understood. Not even like my partner now, wife. I didn't think she really understood, even though she had a lot of compassion for me. I just felt very isolated and felt very alone. And there were times that I did contemplate suicide.
Christmas Day, took all of my pills and I was going to overdose. And I'm sitting at the edge of the bed with the pills all right there. It was never about being dead. It was just ending the pain. Mm-hmm. And these friends that somehow I've been blessed to have developed over the years knew something was wrong, but they found me.
Hi. I had felt unloved and like I didn't fit in throughout my whole life, including I didn't fit in with my family. And there were a few people that I felt close to. I had one uncle, I had my father, who was like my rock, and I had a childhood friend that I felt really close to. And when I was in my late 40s, all of them died within a year and a half of each other. And my best friend and my father died within a week of each other. And I just couldn't take the losses. I felt completely alone. I felt completely worthless, completely unloved, like the world would be better off without me, like no one needed me, no one wanted me. And then I started thinking that everyone was after me. And eventually I started thinking that the FBI were after me. And I began to act accordingly. I didn't go to work much. Did go. I brought transistor radio and I blared it as loud as I could so that people wearing wires would pick up the sound of the music and not my voice. I passed psychotic notes. I would wake up in the morning and I would look at the weather and decide what to say. Today, I might say, it's a beautiful fall day today. So I'd write that on a piece of paper and I'd stick the piece of paper in my pocket. And I'd go out, and if I ran into anyone, I would take my piece of paper out of my pocket and read to them, it's a beautiful fall day today. And then I would just go on. I wouldn't stop for a conversation. And this was my way of protecting myself from the FBI. I spent most of my time in a corner in my room with my knees drawn up to my chest and my arms wrapped around my knees and just shaking. I mean, I'm terrified. I just kept waiting for the FBI to break in. And surprisingly enough, my friends and the people at work stuck with me. And they convinced me to go see a psychiatrist by saying that if the FBI subpoenaed them, they would have to testify against me. But a psychiatrist was covered by doctor-patient confidentiality, and everything I said to him would be kept private. So I was very excited, and I went to a psychiatrist, and he gave me an antipsychotic and an antidepressant. And within about 2 to 3 weeks, my delusions went away, and I was back to normal. Normal for me was very unhappy and feeling very unloved, but I was able to function. So I would started going to work again, started keeping in touch with friends again. And then I said, well, everything's going great. The FBI is no longer after me. So I took myself off my medications and I went psychotic again. And at that point, I lost everything. I lost my job. The finance company repossessed my car. The electric company turned off my electric. I didn't care. I just laid flat on my back in bed with mementos from the people who had died arranged around my head like a halo. And I would lay like that with my arms over my chest for hours, with no conscious thoughts, no thought of time going by. My dog would wake me up to feed him or to bring him up, and I would go right back to bed. And this went on until my phone got turned off. And then my brother called and discovered my phone had been disconnected, and he and a buddy came up to get me and bring me and my dog down here to Maryland to stay with my mother and get the help I needed. Sarah?
Thank you, Sandy, for sharing that. For me, my first episode happened while I was a senior in college. I had very erratic emotions. And I was self-harming, and I began to believe that all the people walking behind me were talking about me. So I went to a doctor and I got a diagnosis of bipolar 1, which eventually developed into bipolar 1 mixed mania, which is like when you get depression and mania at the same time. So it's like a very agitated, irritable state where you're not experiencing the happy euphoria, but you're not experiencing the worst depression. It's just you're very irritable. So I went to the doctor in college, and he gave me medication, and I took the medication, and it caused me to fall asleep blow drying my hair the next day. And my friends were all like, "You have to go to college. You have to go to class. You have to do this," and I just couldn't. So after I finished college that year, I went to Texas and I said, forget all about this. I sought out a therapist, but he was kind of weird. And so I was just kind of going along. And then I had my first full blown episode in Texas where I was becoming very sensitive to noise. I turned the lights off in my classroom. I was a teacher at the time. I would have trouble sleeping. I would stay up late at night cleaning my kitchen. And then I had a traumatic event occur. And that sent me, and then they were trying to give me medication to stay awake and to stay asleep. And it was a very frustrating time. So I went home, moved back home and stayed in bed for 6 months, just totally depressed. And my dad's like, "Sarah, you've got to get out of bed." So I got out of bed. I ended up working, and I ended up working several jobs, retail and teaching and admin assistant. And I just lived like I was on a roller coaster. I was taken to the hospital twice by the police department. I was emergency petitioned. One police officer was lovely. One police officer was a total ass. Pardon my French. And so, and then I got to the point where I was just very reckless. Promiscuity is a hallmark of mania. And I was very promiscuous, and I just thought I was going to die. And so I didn't have anything to hope for. And so, at that point, we looked into getting a different doctor who could really help me. And that's what brought about the change in my life. Marquise, you want to do the next video segment?
I did about 18 months at one of the most notorious prisons in California. After I got out, 90 days later, I was right back in prison. I knew that what I had been doing wasn't working anymore, and that I didn't want to spend the rest of my life in prison.
I remember when I was in the hospital the last time, and my therapist, she came to me, we were talking, and she said to me, I really need you to commit to life, because if not, we can't work together. What I remember is that I just opened myself to the risk of living.
So I knew I needed to get help, but I didn't know what help looked like at that point. I didn't even know if it was possible.
When I ultimately became aware of the fact that I did have, a mental health condition, I always call it the best day of my life, because it was just infinitely better than what reality I was living in.
I feel more liberated. I don't have any skeletons in my closet. I would have saved myself a lot of headaches if I would have accepted it a lot earlier in my life. But you can't change the past. You just turn the page and just start a new chapter in life.
Once I realized, I had a mental health condition, the very first thought on my mind was, okay, how am I going to get on top of this?
I didn't recover from pneumonia all by myself. I didn't recover from depression or post-traumatic stress disorder all by myself.
It took many years to find the right therapist. And I think what made them the right therapist is that they really seemed to genuinely care, to listen to what I had to say.
I find it's always really necessary to sort of advocate for myself, within the mental health system, just because I know if I don't do it, nobody's going to do it. The doctor at first wanted to see me once a month, but I was like, no, we're meeting once a week.
We did it daily in the beginning, then every other day for many, many weeks, and then maybe 3 times a week, then twice a week, once a week, that sort of thing.
Family therapy was a little challenging. My dad didn't really want to go, but in the end, it really brought us all closer together.
My family, they've been a tremendous help, in my recovery. I think the number one thing they did for me that I can't thank them enough for was they never gave up.
I started on medication when I was in 9th grade, and my dad was very against it. My mom is a little more open, and she wanted me to get on medication. She knew that there was something that just chemically wasn't right with me.
I still feel my depression every single day, but the medication I take just gives me the ability to do the things that I need to do.
I think it's important to kind of be in tune and communicate with your doctor with the different side effects.
The most pronounced side effect for me was this overwhelming sleepiness that I would get.
The side effects that really bothered me the most was not being able to think, just confusion.
The only one that I have right now is the weight gain. I hate the compromise. I think I'm still cute. So.
Yes, you are.
I think the one thing that I've learned is that recovery is an ongoing process. You don't just start taking a magic pill and get better, or find the right therapist and get better. You have to work at it every day.
It's important for me to keep up the routines that I do, even when I'm doing really, really well. That just kind of reinforces my path to wellness.
It's very important for me to have things organized, written down in a calendar somewhere, so I know what I'm doing at what time.
I realized how much better I function during the day with a full night's sleep.
My grandkids, my family, my friends, can't get enough of them.
Positive self-talk. That's something I practice often for my recovery. If I ever feel myself getting stressed, anxious about something, I'll say, I got this. Nothing can take away your peace.
I also do go to the gym, and I do hot yoga. I love hot yoga. I really do. It's very therapeutic.
I didn't even realize I was spiritual before. But what it has done now actually has played a huge part in my recovery process.
Doing things like, regular meditation kept my mind clear enough for me to be able to pay close attention to what was going on.
Mindfulness is all about awareness, being aware of the present moment. And that has helped me in not only accepting, but also leading a meaningful life.
Some of the compromises I've had to make with my recovery is that I've had to cut back on my alcohol use.
I'm not afraid to tell friends when I go out anymore, hey, you're not drinking knobs, I'm on medication.
Yeah.
I don't have to tell them what meds. It's no sweat off my back not to have a drink. It's actually save money that way.
Yeah, that's true.
When I was incarcerated, they served bologna sandwiches like almost every single day. And when somebody offers me or suggests that I go someplace that I know will get me in trouble, I usually just say that'll lead to a bologna sandwich. And I haven't had a bologna sandwich in over 10 years.
Yeah.
And trying to never eat another bologna sandwich for the rest of my life.
Those are the worst.
Yeah.
Okay. Every day I take an antidepressant, and I went into therapy for years. And I quit my therapist. She moved to Florida, and we both decided that I would be fine on my own, that I had the tools. I have developed close friendships with people who also are in recovery from mental illness, and we're there for each other. I feel like I can talk to them about anything, and I will never be judged, and I will always be supported. And they're a godsend. So are my other friends and family. But besides that, I make every day, all day, a coping skill. The first thing I do when I wake up is give thanks for all the great things in my life. And I name them all, the little things and the big things and the things we take for granted. And I start off the day feeling like I have an abundance of love and material things in my life. As I go through the day, I make sure I laugh every day. And if nothing else works, I'll put on an old sitcom and laugh to that. Right now, I've been watching a lot of The Big Bang Theory, which people either love or hate. I walk my dog twice a day, and I think walking is important to your mental health. And lately, I've been eating healthy because I think that also contributes to your mental health. And as a side benefit of that, I've lost 31 pounds. So I'm really happy about that. Every day I do something nice for me and something nice for someone else. And when I first started, it seemed impossible to think of things. And now the possibilities are endless without spending any money. I can give myself a piece of chocolate. I can have a bubble bath instead of a quick shower. I can spend some time reading a mystery. So there's a lot of things I can do for myself. Things that I do for other people. I can say hi to people when I pass them on the street and smile. I can hold the door open for someone coming behind me, let someone come in front of me and try it, or compliment a stranger on how they look. And that's my favorite thing to do because they just glow and then I just glow, and it's just a really good feeling. Then I make sure I do something productive every day, so I don't just sit around and read and watch TV. I'll write. Yesterday I went and got shots. Today I'm doing this. So every day I do something productive. And then at night, my mother and I sit and talk about the good things that happen to us during the day. And that's how we end our day. And that's how I'm ending the session of my talk. And I'm going to turn it over to Sarah.
Thank you, Sandy, for sharing those very helpful things. For me, what helped was that after a long time of searching, I found a good doctor. The first time I met with him for my introduction, he spent 7 hours with me, and he looked over all of my records, and he said, he came up with a treatment plan that would work for me. And we had to try a lot of different medications because Some medications I had bad side effects from. Some medications gave me akathisia, which is like your skin feels like it's moving, but it's not moving at all. Not a very good side effect. And so he was very patient. I tried to be patient, although I am not a very patient person when it comes to those things. So a good doctor, the right medication, makes a big difference. And I have had setbacks with medications. We had a setback in a couple years ago when I almost got toxic because of a drug interaction. When I did get toxic on a medication, so we had to go back to the drawing board and find out what worked that time. And then recently in February, we had another incident where the drugs the drugs mixed with the hormones were not working, and so we had to go back to the drawing board and find something that helped. But I had to realize that this illness wasn't cured, that we might have setbacks, but a setback did not mean we were set back all the way to the beginning. It just was a setback, a smaller setback. I also began to rely on my family because my family, my mom and my dad and my sisters are a big help to me. And I can call up my sisters and ask, talk to her about anything. One of them is my big support. And the other ones I can count on sometimes too, just for a conversation. My dad was a big support to me because overspending money is a huge problem with bipolar disorder. And so he was the kindest person. He just sat down and he didn't ask a lot of questions. He just slowly figured out with me how to repay all of the bills that I had. And so that was it always helps when you're working with someone who has a disorder. You just, or working with someone who has a mental illness, if you're just calm and, just go about attacking the problem without blame, which he really did well of. And so another thing that helps is I realized that mental illness did not make me flawed. Initially, when I was diagnosed with mental illness, I thought that I was like a flawed human being, that something was wrong with me, that I would never amount to anything. And I realized that was not the case, that I could amount to anything, that I could amount to something, and that I still had much to give in me. I was a teacher before my diagnosis. Well, a teacher before and during my diagnosis, and I realized that I always wanted to get like an best teacher of the year award or something, but I got an award from NAMI in, I think it was 2014, for the Grassroots Mental Health Award, and that meant the world to me because I realized I could be an educator and I didn't have to be in a classroom. I could educate people doing inner and voice and doing connections and doing other things through NAMI. And so I could accomplish and teach, and that made me very happy. I had to realize that feelings weren't facts. I would feel a certain way about something, and it wasn't necessarily, that didn't necessarily make it the way that it didn't necessarily make it that it was that way. If I'm giving a presentation and people are super quiet, or don't ask a lot of questions, or just seem to be staring at me, I had to realize that, have the confidence in myself just to give the presentation and not worry about what others were thinking. And that if I felt that they, didn't like me or something, that isn't necessarily a fact. Maybe they're just tired, or, just realizing that, to have self-confidence in myself. I also do, my family support was help. Like Sandy, I love a sense of humor. I love making my dad laugh and making my mom laugh, and, just being close to them. I live with my parents, right now. And so that I get a lot of joy out of knowing them as older people versus knowing them as younger people. And I just appreciate support from my friends. We go out a lot to the movies or the bonfire or whatever happens to be that weekend. And I was just in one of my friends' weddings. So overall, I just realized that I still have a world of things that I can accomplish even with mental illness. And I'm very proud and I'm very happy about that. Marquise, you want to do the third video?
It seems like my journey has been a bit of a roller coaster ride where I've accepted and I've recovered and then I've relapsed and I've accepted and recovered and relapsed. And now I find myself in a probably the best place I've been in a really long time.
You know, success with a mental health condition can really be just about anything you make of it.
Success started off in baby steps. That's how I've redefined it, because it used to be getting out of bed was a success. Taking my medication 7 days in a row was a success. It started off small.
When I started this process, I didn't have a lot to be proud of. And now, man, there's so much to be proud of. Just living my life in a healthy way, not having my power turned off, paying my rent, paying all my bills on time.
After everything I went through, I'm really proud of the fact that I was able to go ahead and actually finish school.
I own my own home. I have a great job.
My relationships have improved since I've been in recovery, both with my family, with my friends, with my employers, definitely with myself. I don't have that whole shame thing going on anymore.
This past year was like my first consistent year in recovery without any relapses. And so that was something definitely to celebrate. And we celebrated that. So just to see things like that is encouraging to me, and it gives me the fortitude to continue on and say that I know that I can do it.
One hope is that I can continue on this path of wellness and recovery, of being happy within my own skin.
I'd like to just, slowly but surely sort of make my way back to leading, a much more healthy lifestyle.
You can be happy and healthy whether you have a mental health condition or not.
I think success is being able to communicate your truth to another person.
Getting these emotions out with another person who you know has worn your shoes, has walked your path, just gives you that energy, gives you that hope.
And once I started talking about it, I didn't feel as alone anymore. And I felt strength through other people.
One thing that I've learned about mental illness is that it's one of the most common diseases in America. It's more common than heart disease, more common than diabetes, and more common than cancer. But most people don't recognize that. Just having that knowledge and being able to share that with others might be enough to get them involved in their own treatment, their own help.
The only way that we can help people with mental health conditions, mental health issues, is by removing the stigma attached to it.
I know that when I was in high school, I wish I had someone tell me that things get better. So I want to be that light for someone else. I want to help others and give them hope and let them know that it's going to be okay.
I really believe that reminding myself of how far I've come keeps me on this path of recovery. I don't want to go back to the places that I've been to. And by telling my story, I'm pretty certain it's never going to happen again. No more bologna sandwiches for me.
Not sure what happened to Sandy, so I'm going to finish up and then open the floor for questions. For me, being successful has shown up was just little steps. And right now, I work part-time with NAMI on the Maryland Programs and Training team, which is a huge success for me and a huge accomplishment. I've always loved NAMI, and I love that now I have the opportunity to pay it forward and work with them. There's a board called the New Day Wellness Center. There's a place called the New Day Wellness Center in Aberdeen, Maryland. And I was asked to be on the board for them. And that is a bucket list item because I always have wanted to be on the board for an organization, and I was pleased. They work with addicts and people with mental health issues and people with homelessness, and they provide resources for all of those things. So that was a big deal for me. I was invited to testify before the Maryland House on this CIT bill a couple sessions ago, which was another bucket list because I love to be able to advocate and work with and within the government to make changes in the positive changes for mental health. I am a state trainer for NAMI Connections and this program, NAMI in Our Own Voice. And I'm also a support group facilitator. So working with NAMI is it in any capacity as a volunteer or a worker is a huge success to me. I also go to health fairs and other events to advocate for NAMI. And sometimes you only get, I consider it a success, even if you've only reached, one person. If that one person reaches out and makes a difference, you've reached somebody, or they want to hear an in our own voice presentation, or they want to do something regarding mental health. I consider that a success. And I realized that recovery is learning to live well with my mental illness. As I said before, living your mental illness never goes away, but if you learn to live well with it and learn that it's a part of your life, but it is not your entire life, or it's a part of you, but it does not define you. Took me a long time to learn that, but that's really something that I've learned in the past few years. And so that's about it. Any questions? I'll open the floor for questions if you have questions, and maybe Sandy will be able to get her computer back up and running. I'm not sure.
If anyone has a question, we urge you to put those questions in the chat so that we can read your questions and answer them. You are welcome to ask anything that you would like to know.
I am a very open person, I can tell you, and Sandy is too. And so any thoughts, questions, or whatever, I'm used to speaking to people. So anything you have a desire to know, I'm happy to try to answer it.
We're going to hold out for another minute for anybody who might be a little reticent to think about their question.
And one of the things I forgot to mention that I also dealt with during my illness is I was hospitalized over 10 times, and I two suicide attempts. And one of the things that comes with bipolar 1 disorder is impaired judgment, overspending, hypersexuality, thrill-seeking behavior, overeating. I used to tell people that I like to eat. If I knew something was up, if I started eating too many cheeseburgers, because I would that would be a clue to me that something was wrong, because I would be hungry all the time. So different diagnoses have different things that come. Oh, here's Sandy.
Hi, I got frozen there. Are we answering questions now?
We're answering questions, but if you want to tell your what's next really quick.
Yes,
I
Sandy,
would love to because
yes, please.
yeah, I'm very proud of what I've done, so I would love to share it. First of all, my biggest success is that I'm comfortable with myself, I like myself, and I'm kind to myself. I used to be really mean to myself. I would call myself crazy. I would call myself stupid. I would say, you're worthless, you do anything, blah, blah, blah. And now I tell myself I love myself. When I make a mistake, I just say, okay, what can we learn from that and how can we try better? And because I'm more accepting of myself, I now have better relationships with my families and friends. Financially, I started a business, ran it for 14 years, and sold it to a woman in Chicago who is still running it. When I retired, I said I was going to do the things I'd always wanted to do, and I'd always wanted to write. And so I signed up for a writing club, and I've been taking some creative writing courses, and I've been submitting my writing, and I am now an award-winning published author. So that's a really good thing. I'm very proud of that. And also, for the last 7 years, I have been doing work that I really, really, really love. I've been coaching seniors who are depressed to try to help them develop better coping skills and better self-images. And it's the most fulfilling work I've ever done. I also love my work with NAMI. I've worked 3 of the 4 programs. I train too, and I love training. And for the future, I know it's going to be rough on me when I lose.
Oh dear, she was just giving her letting us know. Hopefully she'll be able to come back and finish. And I know she was having technical issues with her computer. It looks like somebody posted in the QA. Well, you are welcome. Sharing our stories is something both Sandy and I love to do. So thank you for your appreciation. It really means a lot to us. Any other questions about?
Deborah Handy also thanked you and Sandy for sharing your experiences. And she said, to know yourself is to love yourself.
That's very true, Deb. And it took me a while to love myself when I was diagnosed with this illness. It took me a long time to really come back and appreciate myself. And there you are, Sandy. Did you want to finish what you were saying?
Sandy, if you're unmuted, you can continue, please. Sandy, you're on mute.
Can you hear us, Sandy?
Sandy, are you able to hear us? Uh-oh.
While we're waiting for Sandy, do we have any people who have any other comments or questions on, bipolar disorder, or any other questions about living with it and what it's like to live with it, or any other questions you might have?
Sandy, can you, we cannot hear you, but you're not muted. Are you speaking?
She said she has no audio.
Okay. So if there are no more questions, we'd like to thank Sandy and Sarah for a terrific presentation. And if you have further questions, please send your questions and the name of the session you attended to connection@namimaryland.org, or submit your question in your end of event evaluation later this afternoon. So we're going to close at the end of these comments. If you'd like to acquire CEUs for this work,